Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Mark Laster, and I am the third vice chair of Queens Community Board 6. Tonight is our eighth intergenerational discussion. These panels have drawn over 3,900 views to date. We started these panel discussions back in early 2022, right as the pandemic was beginning to wind down. Tonight, our panel discussion is devoted to Pride Month. The topic is Reflect, Empower, and Unite, Bridging Generations in Pride. This panel discussion is sponsored by CB6's Aging Social Service Disability Committee, Education Youth Committee, Common Point Queens, and Queens Community House. I want to acknowledge the work of Bruce Grossberg, chair of CB6's Aging Social Service Disability Committee, Pat Morgan, a member of the committee, who helped us develop the topic for tonight and has been a major force behind the previous two panels we have done for Pride Month. Sherry Rolnick, chair of the Education Youth Committee of CB6, and our chair, Heather Beers Dimiatris, and our newly appointed district manager, Christine Nolan, for their support of this program. And I'd also like to acknowledge Emily Castro from Queens Community House, who helped us identify a number of our panelists you see on your screen tonight. So this is the first time that we're using YouTube for live streaming. So you're going to see you see a few of us on the screen, but it seems like now most of the people you're going to see are the panelists. So without further ado, I'd like to turn the program over to Faja Mahama of Queens Community House, who's been facilitating the discussion, who will be facilitating the discussion this evening, and has been invaluable to all of these 8 programs. Faja, please take it away.
Thank you, Mark. Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Fadia Muhammad. My pronouns are she and her. I am 45 years old, and I'm from Forest Hills, Queens. I am super excited about this intergenerational webinar and our first one on YouTube, hoping to continue to grow this. But I'm really, really excited about celebrating Pride Month and about just having all of you here to talk about something that's so important and how we can bring the community together. So I'm going to let everybody here, our panelists, introduce themselves. I'll start with Frank. Frank, name, pronouns, age, if you want to share,
The name's
and
Frank.
what country you're from.
Okay. The name's Frank Diaz. Personal pronouns, he, him, her, he, him, That's it. Okay. Age 77, Jackson Heights, Queens. And I'm with actually the lesbian gay Queens. What is it? The senior center in Queens. With
Awesome.
Queens Community House.
It's really great having you here, Mark. Thank you so much. Melanie?
Hello, my name is Melanie. I use she, her pronouns. I am 25 years old. I'm currently living in Astoria, Queens, but I am a program specialist for the LGBT network, and that's the community that I'm representing today. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. We're so excited. Vin?
Hi, my name is Vinh Nguyễn, or Nguyễn Quốc Vinh in Vietnamese. I use my pronouns as he, him, and his, and I am 55 years old. I live in Forest Hills, and I teach Vietnamese language, history, and literature at Columbia.
Awesome. And Rich?
Hi, I'm Rich Wandel. I'm, what am I, 78, I think? Yes. Been around the community a long time. Been very much a gay activist since the 1970s and still like to cause trouble. My pronouns are usually he, him, but it really is unimportant to me what pronoun you use for me.
We all like to cause trouble, so this is a really great group. So we are this intergenerational webinar talks about reflecting, empowering, and uniting the community. So I'm going to go with the first question. Our first question is, how have your experiences as an LGBT plus person in your generation shaped your perspective And how do you view the changes in the LGBT plus landscape from when you were younger to now? Vin, do you want to start?
If I may share my coming out story, I came to the United States in 1985 as a 17-year-old, and sexuality was the farthest thing from my mind. But when I entered college 2 years later, I suddenly had a crush on my freshman year roommate, and it scares the wit out of me, and I rushed back into the closet. I wasn't even sure if it's called a closet or not. And so I stayed in there for about 5 years, partly because of fear, because of shame, which is very big in an Asian community, and also partly out of guilt from my Roman Catholic background. So it took me 5 years of internal struggle to come out when I was 24. So it was relatively late in the day. And at that time, in the early 1990s, it was the post-Reagan years. So the AIDS epidemic was casting a huge pall on the queer community everywhere. And we were living in fear of the epidemic, and political activism was very strong in terms of demanding the queer and whatnot. And so I was kind of caught up in that spirit, but being in academia, I saw myself as playing a small part in a kind of cultural activism and trying to give voice to the minority community within our community to have greater voice and visibility. Because at that time, people of color, and especially Asians and Vietnamese Americans being a subset of that, didn't really have too great of a visibility and much of a voice. So I thought that maybe I can do something and contribute to that. So I became socially active with the various Asian and Pacific Islander queer group in Boston, which was where I was going to college and graduate school. And then I went to Vietnam for 3 years to do dissertation research. And I was also trying to connect and be active with the underground queer scene in Vietnam, and trying to give some visibility to the fact that they're not alone, and there are other Vietnamese and inside and outside the country who are in the same boat and who can provide support for each other. So I thought that by living my own life as an example of an openly gay person, an openly gay person of color, and Asian, and doing research on gay literature and history, particularly Vietnamese gay literature and history, I thought that I could make a small contribution toward changing people's understanding and attitude and acceptance of our community. So that's my coming out story. And now looking back, it seems to be so long ago, 30 years ago, and much progress have been achieved on the political front. We have finally gotten the rights of gay marriage. But there is a huge backlash. So we need to be vigilant. And I think that being aware of where we came from, what struggle we have gone through, and also that would help us affirm who we are today and where we can progress to in the future. So thank you.
And thank you so much for sharing. I think that it's very powerful what you said and how you wanted to be an example for others. And I am sure that you empowered so many and you helped so many, kind of giving them that space to be brave, right? And just be proud of who they are and just come out and So thank you for sharing that. And I'm going to pass it on to Melanie. Do you want me to read the question again, or?
No, I think I'm good.
Oh, yeah.
But thank you. So I grew up in a rural white conservative community in Iowa. So growing up for me was pretty strange. But I would say that I knew I was gay before I knew that I was Asian, which, is so weird because in a town where they're all white people, the last thing that I was thinking about was that I'm different than everybody. But I did. Internally, I was different. I knew that I felt different. And from kindergarten, I had a crush on my woman teacher. So as I grew up, I realized like I had feelings for women. Um, and that was pretty hard for me to cope with. My family was particularly very religious, and they really discouraged a lot of secular kind of thinking, television, movies, books that were not about our religion or that were not about the things that we valued were off limits to me. And I had to do a lot of secretive internet sleuthing in order to figure out what gay even meant. So I grew up my whole life just being in the closet. And I didn't even want to tell my friends that I was gay because the community was very religious as well. And I even stopped being friends with some of my really, really close friends because I didn't think that they would accept me. And at the time, they probably wouldn't have because they were also very religious. But now at the age of 25, all of my friends that I grew up with have identified as some sort of LGBT. So that is an interesting kind of thing that happened. I came out to my parents officially when I was a sophomore in college. And I remember the day very vividly because it wasn't that long ago. They said a lot of hurtful things to me that I still remember. And my parents have never really said sorry for how they handled that situation. And even today, like my parents are still very unsupportive of my current relationship with my partner, and would not go to my wedding if I were to be married to my partner. And that's just something that I've kind of expected, especially growing up and knowing their values. Um, and I thought that I would never come out to them. But when I did, I just remember it being the end of the world and then waking up the next day and realizing that life goes on. So now I am very independent from my parents. And even though I have a relationship with them, it's not the type of relationship that I want or needed when I was younger. So because of that, I think that my personal story is very traumatic, but it really doesn't have to be for LGBT people. A lot of times when we hear coming out stories, it's always the really bad stories of unsupportive parents or being kicked out of your home or a caregiver's place. And that prevents people from living their true, authentic selves. So I just really want people to know that it may be scary to come out. You should always do it when you feel safe and comfortable, but always prioritize your safety, especially when you're younger. And when you're old enough to be independent and live your truth, I hope that you do find peace and solace in who you are. So that's a little bit about me, but turning it back to you.
Thank you so much for sharing. I think that message is going to be, again, all of this is going to be really powerful. And I hope that those that get to hear your stories really find the strength. And again, I'm going to keep using the word empower because this is what this whole webinar is. But I'm going to let you guys talk because I can also talk forever. Frank, go ahead, your turn, and then we'll pass it to Rich.
All right. I the whole thing about coming out is, to me, was a whole process that lasted over really a number of years. I mean, I first remember actually, I guess I always knew I was gay, even I don't even know when it started, but it started I was really young. And I guess the first person I discussed it with was my sister. And I assume she discussed it with other siblings, not with my parents. And over time, I think the thing is, there was never any issue with them of being hostile or rejecting. I think the biggest problem I had with it was like not living up to their expectations. That maybe was the whole thing. For some reason, I didn't care about my sister, but for some reason, my parents, that was a big thing for me. And, you know, over time, I think I came out to different people in different places, in different situations. And quite honestly, the funniest thing is that even when I was living somebody, I just kind of refused to come out to everybody completely. My current spouse was the person, in spite of the fact that we have so many things not in common with each other, he's one guy who helped me, boy, because, you know, I met him. We went to visit his family in Colombia, and he's just said, "Oh, this is my boyfriend here." It's like, I said, "How come he can do that?" And I don't know whether they were cool with it or not, but they sure acted that way. And it provoked me. It helped me to do the same thing. I mean, at the age of like 40 something, I mean, I've been with him like 30 some odd years now, but that was a big, big, big thing for me. It was a big help. That's how come I'd say it was a whole process. In terms of the whole past, I started, dipped my toes in little activism and things in college, and I just never really felt comfortable with the groups. And I hate to say it, it was like a little bit of a racial element to that. I did not feel 100% comfortable hanging out or joining in with them. Plus, of course, I wasn't completely out myself. I think it was a number of those things. It took me until I actually moved to Jackson Heights, the gayest neighborhood in Queens, probably, that I started getting involved with, like, you know, the political groups. And then there was the parade that was starting here with the Julia Rivera thing. And when I was living here, you know, you started then marching in the parades and getting involved with the Lesbian Gay Democratic Club of Queens and getting somebody gay in the neighborhood elected, knocking on doors and that kind of thing. And then, of course, now I stopped doing that, but I'm involved with the scene, either the Sage Center downtown or the not downtown, the Harlem Sage Center and the Sage Center, or the Queens Center for Gay Seniors that you guys operate, and been active with them. So that's really basically it. It's a series of things that happened over time, and for me to feel completely out with everybody and not really to care what anybody thinks. That took a while. Take care. That's it.
Awesome. I went to Colombia last year in August, and one of the things that I absolutely loved was how open everybody was and how accepting it was. There were so many LGBTQ like couples walking. It was like, and I was like, this is the world that we should all live in. Like this was so. It was
Believe
beautiful.
me, that's not the reputation they have. It's I mean, I've been there many, many, many times now
Yeah.
because we go pretty much every year, but that's the reality, and what the reputation they have is just totally different. So
It was beautiful to see. It was beautiful how everybody was so, you know, one thing that I tell people here that are from Colombia, I said one of the things that I loved when I visit was how their tradition and their love and their acceptance carried to Jackson Heights, and you know, so it was, again, it was just really beautiful to see.
I will say one thing about my parents. It's funny. It was a strange thing, and I wish I could say that we were able. I'm not a real talky kind of guy, really, and I know they accepted it, and I think what helped them accept it was my mother had a friend of hers whose son was gay, who was really very accepting, and I think she did me a favor. Her friend did me a favor by talking that up with my mother. Except I think it's never got to the point where we, and I regret this a little bit, were able to discuss it. We knew it was there. They never said anything about it. I never said anything about it. I brought my friend over there and everything. They knew, I'm sure they had to know. I mean, but we just never were able to get to that point. Too bad.
Rich?
I didn't even come out to myself until the age of 24. After 6 years in a Catholic monastery, which they kind of pushed me out, didn't directly throw me out, but more or less did so. They having seen it before I did. Although there are certainly, looking back over time, there's certainly all sorts of reasons why I should have seen it before that. I did not. But once I had come out to myself, which was in the late summer or early fall of 1969, which meant they were already gay organizations loudly protesting in the city of New York, which I quickly found a home in. And so within 6 or 8 months, I was totally out publicly, up to and including interviews on a radio or being seen at demonstrations or whatever. The fact that I happen to be a gay man has been the greatest thing that has ever happened to me. It has more than influenced my entire life. It has put me in a position to maybe not in one fell swoop of lightning, but over time have a far greater understanding of discrimination or indeed oppression of any number of groups. Obviously, racial groups are involved in that, but also women, just a whole number of things. I mean, I came out of a family. I remember when I was a kid, and it was common in those days for somebody to say, "What nationality are you?" Meaning, what's your ancestry? And I was instructed by my parents that the only proper answer to that question was an American for McCarthy. So that's what I'm coming out of. But the fact of being gay, there are other influences too, but the predominant one is just how that opens, if one allows it to, one's eyes to everything. So having come out publicly so soon after I was knowing myself, it also means that every job I ever had since I was out already, sometimes people, for fear of their jobs, will say, "I can't come out because of what my job is." And what I say to them is, I got my good job because I'm gay, because I'm out and publicly. I don't have to put up with that other crap of being frightened or it being used against me. I'm already, they wouldn't have hired me if they didn't like it. So there you are. And it's worked out wonderfully. And I'm eternally grateful to all of the gods that I'm a gay person.
Thank you so much for sharing that, and thank you for all the work that you're doing, all of you. My next question, we're going to talk about uniting the community and allies. There's something that Frank said that I wanted to ask the next question. How can we work towards creating, I'm sorry, wrong one. This is for the next one. How can we ensure that LGBTQIA plus voices are heard and respected in various fields? This time, anybody want to go?
You just do it. Really, I mean, you just do it. And well, I guess unlike in the 1970s when I came out, unlike then, I guess everybody knows that they know gay people. They always have known gay people. But many times they didn't know it. And just by being who you are in the vast variety of what it means to be LGBT plus is how you do it. It's not some great strategy. The early, by early meaning not really early, but the post-Stonewall organizations always knew that the key to it all The key to it all is simply coming out. All right. Now, if you're a young person still at home, you make sure you have a backup of what can happen. All right. So I'm not saying regardless, do it right today. That depends upon your circumstance. But the key has always been simply be who you are, and the hell with the rest, frankly.
I would kind of agree with that, and I'll tell you the truth. The thing that I've always found is that everybody knows anyway. And when you just are open about it, the thing if they don't know the suspect, so like the thing is that what you call it, they respect you more when you're just upfront. That's what I found. I don't know whether that's for everybody. And I say the thing, if you're really younger with your parents, it might be for me, for some reason, that was never an issue. Even whether I thought they hated it or wouldn't hate it, I never felt I was going to be cut off from them. Maybe I wouldn't be talking much about it, but it was never the thing of anybody going to do anything to me. And that's the way I feel about it.
Yeah, if I may piggyback on Rich and Frank's answers, it's true that, I mean, the best way to make our voices heard and our presence visible is to come out and be proud of who we are, and not to be so defiant about it, but be humble about who we are, and show the world the example, the living example of who we are, what we do, and the kind of people that we have in our lives. And I think that that is a way that we can build alliances and make sure that people will hear our voices and see and recognize us for who we are. In my personal example, I mentioned earlier, I came out at the age of 24. I was denying my sexuality for a long time, and the first person that I somehow came out to unintentionally, we just happened to talk on my birthday when my sister called and talked to me on the phone, and somehow we were talking for a couple of hours, and then it came out of my mouth that, oh, by the way, I want to let you know that I am gay. And she was not surprised, and she was very supportive. And I think that, like Frank said, I mean, many people would know even before you know yourself, and they would be even more accepting of you, who you are, than you yourself, when you have to struggle to accept yourself to come out in the first place. And in my case, at that time, I was in graduate school, and I wanted to parlay that into something. I mean, learning about myself, learning about my background, the intersectionality of it all. I am an Asian, a Vietnamese with mixed Chinese parentage. And so I was doing Asian studies as my academic field, partly to learn about my ethnic and cultural background. And when I came out, I was very gung-ho about it, and I wanted everybody to know, and I want to learn all there could be about myself. And of course, I mean, gay history in the US is a very, I'm sorry to say this, at that time, it was a very wide version of gay history. Just like Frank mentioned earlier, I mean, sometimes you don't feel belong because you don't see yourself in that history. And so I was trying to go and look back in Vietnamese history and literature and find out, dig up examples of gay literature and queer personalities in Vietnam. And I'm proud to be one of the first pioneering scholars in gay Vietnamese literary studies. And later on, my colleagues who know that I am gay through my work and through my scholarship, I think that in some way that has improved their understanding and respect of who I am. Instead of I mean, being having an adverse reaction. I mean, I don't want to deal with this queer guy, and this is a token queer guy, and he talks about queer stuff, and I don't want to hear anything about it. I think that by contrast, because I am a respectable scholar in my field, which is early modern to modern Vietnamese literary history, by extending my scholarship into the field of queer studies, I bring the respect that I have in mainstream scholarship to my work in queer studies. And I think that makes it easier for people to recognize it, value it, and respect it for what it is. And I was really heartened that, 2 years ago, during my last trip to Vietnam in 2022, after the pandemic, a journalist in Vietnam who has a YouTube channel, nowadays everybody is on YouTube, like we are right now. He knew of my work. He knew that I am gay, so he wanted to interview me for his YouTube channel. And I was happy to come and talk about my coming out experience, talk about my work in queer literary studies. And I mean, we were talking for like an hour, and that hour-long interview, which was posted on his YouTube channel, has received close to 40,000 views to date. And I mean, I think that blew my mind, because I couldn't really understand that nowadays social media could have such a wide reach. I mean, through personal example, talking to my friends, colleagues, and family members, and the small Vietnamese gay community, I can reach maybe a handful of people at the start, and then a little bit more, but a little bit more. But nowadays, even on social media, you can reach thousands and thousands of people. And I think that most of the people, there were more than 100 comments on the video of the interview, and most of the comments were very respectful and very supportive, much to my relief and much to my surprise. So I'm happy that my visibility as an openly gay man and as a scholar of gay Vietnamese literature has helped me, bring greater attention and visibility to our small community. And that community is the community that is not just in the US, within the Vietnamese American community, but the Vietnamese community back home in Vietnam. And I think that it is a privilege and an honor for me to be able to play this role as a bridge between cultures, between countries, and within and outside of the gay community to the straight community at large as well. So
you have to share that link with us, because I would like to see it.
well, if you understand Vietnamese and can listen to it.
I'm sure there's like some program now that I can translate.
Well, you're most welcome. You are most welcome.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Thank you for sharing that, Melanie.
Yeah, I'm really just awed by the experiences and the amount of work that y'all have put into the LGBT community, like archival history at the center to Vietnamese history, and LGBT representation as a historian is just spectacular. And I'm thinking about the question. I'm also thinking about your experiences and how all of those are necessary and needed in order for there to be visibility. In addition, women scholars, LGBT, non-binary historians, as well as more people of color who share their experiences, the intersectional parts of them. The two main things that come to my mind, of course, for visibility is education and creation, like you talked about, because we live in an era of technology where, due to the pandemic, a lot of social activities have now been reduced. And we find more and more people are staying inside, and they have communities, but they're not going out. And I'm thinking also about my experiences in living in Iowa as an LGBT person and the dramatic difference between LGBT people in New York and LGBT people in Iowa, which is a very stark difference. And just an example is, on dating apps, which is a very young thing. If you're swiping on dating apps in Iowa for LGBT people, you run out of swiping options. You see your ex or you see your ex's ex, and those are like your only options. But in New York, you never run out of swiping options because everybody is some variation of LGBT. So I think it's really special, the community that New York and the East Coast has with the huge population. And now, since we are a little bit removed from the pandemic era, I think that it's a good time to come back together to see how people are feeling and what has happened since then. I think a lot of people may have found themselves in their identities during COVID. And because of this, we are now seeing an influx in identities and labels that are new. And this is a chance to learn more about how fluid is gender, how fluid is sexual orientation. As an LGBT program specialist, I am still learning new things about the LGBT community every single day. A lot of people that I meet don't always know about Stonewall, even if they live in New York. So I encourage everyone that wants to be visible and wants to have representation in their community to be the light in their community, to go out, find things for themselves, and create. And if they're creating as an LGBT person and they have other intersectional parts of them, then they will be represented by the footprint that they leave behind, whether it's digital or whether it's nonprofit work or whether it's just a small difference in your community. I think that that's like a really effective way to generate change and to be visible.
Awesome. I love that you said that because we have to use the tools that we have now to really, and then I love the fact that you guys all mentioned at one point or another education. Education is the most powerful thing. And I love the fact that you guys mentioned be proud of who you are because those who love you and those who want to be a part are going to be a part. And those who are don't, unfortunately, they're missing out. But just keep surrounding yourself with people who love you and respect you and see you and continue to do the amazing work that you guys are doing. And this is exactly why we do these webinars is because we want to bring people together and we want to educate, which is the number one thing. And again, I'm going to continue to say empower, but empower each other. So that leaves me with our last topic, which is uniting the community and allies. What advice would you give to someone who wants to become a better ally to the LGBTQIA+ community?
I think that's always about listening. I mean, you're talking in terms of allies to LGBT community, but I have to ask that question myself in terms of being an ally to women or an ally to people of color. And so let me answer in those terms, but I think it would be the same if in terms of an ally to the LGBT+ community. I have to listen more than anything else. I have to understand that no matter how great I am at this, it is not the same as actually being a woman or a person of color or whatever. And there will always be that, well, not quite, because I have not lived that experience. The discrimination I have felt as gay will be the same in some ways, but not in others. It'll probably take me a beat or two before I realize what's happening, while the person of color will know even before it happened. I'll give you an example of that. I happen to have nieces and nephews who are people of color, and we were together in Virginia for staying at a bed and breakfast all together for a family event that we had down there. And one niece says, one niece who is not a person of color says, "Gee, it's a nice evening. Let's go for a walk. Who wants to go?" A number of us said yes. Person of color said, "No, I think I'll pass on that." And took me 2 blocks of walking through the neighborhood before I realized, of course he's going to say that. That's dangerous to him, to walking in a white neighborhood. So be aware, learn all you can, but also know you can never be quite there, and listen more than speak.
Yeah, thank you, Rich, for that wonderful advice. And I think that when people listen, we can find commonalities. And I think that aside from listening, we should listen with open mind and open heart. Open mind so that we can learn about people who are similar to us as well as different than us. And we can respect and celebrate the values that we share, or even the values we differ, but we can advocate for our values in our own ways, in a respectful dialogue. And so that eventually we can change our heart. It's a matter of having a good positive attitude toward people who are different than you are. And I think that those people who have gone through listening and learning about others with open mind and open heart would make the most wonderful allies inside as well as outside of our LGBTQ community.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback if that's okay, because I do like this message of listening and accepting. I think that society has kind of adopted this like acceptance but tolerating kind of
Terrible word.
attitude.
Terrible
I
word.
know, yeah. It's not like a great look. Like people will accept that LGBT people exist, and they can tolerate that they are here, but they could also adapt an attitude of ignorance and deciding to close their eyes, to ignore LGBT people. So I really wish that we could move past that and develop an attitude of not just tolerance, but affirmation and active support, where people are kind of given the opportunity to learn and educate themselves about LGBT people, to maybe debunk the myths and the things that religion has told them about LGBT people. And it is hard. I know that religion, morals, people really struggle with that, and affirming LGBT people, but I don't think love is wrong. And I think that's the basis of most religions, is to love thy neighbor. And I really wish that we could all just come together and love each other. In addition to supporting each other, regardless of how we feel, it is better to be supportive and affirming than passive and tolerant. Just because you're not helping anybody if LGBT people are being discriminated against and violence is being perpetuated. So that is my hope.
And they still are to a certain extent. I mean, look at all the trans things. I'll tell you the truth. For me personally, it's like, it's a whole process. And I remember going back a number of years, I just thought of like gay and straight, and that was it. And now, like, there's so many. I saw this thing. It was a great little TV show about disco when they were talking about Sylvester, and they said, "Oh, well, Sylvester wasn't he, she, or it. He was just Sylvester." It's like he was just whatever he was him. And that sometimes that kind of fluidity is really very hard to. It took a long time for me, and I don't think I've 100% understand it or accepted it. It's something that's again, for me, it's like a process. And I don't know whether my feeling is, I don't know whether it's true or not. I think even within the LGBTQ plus community, some of that tolerance needs to be cultivated and
Absolutely.
understanding because I think for a lot of people, it's a real struggle. A struggle that they don't even want to try to struggle with, or it's for some people, and that's too bad. But I think there's an element of truth to that. For me, that's my experience. I'm not going to lay that on anybody else.
That was really powerful and beautiful what each of you said. Melanie, I'm gonna get a sticker that says, "Love is not wrong. Love thy neighbor."
It's so true.
Yeah, no, I think it was really powerful, and I love the fact that you all mentioned listening. One of the things with everything that's going on, and just the world, how it's changing and it's growing, and we have so much more work to do, but that's the one thing we always talk about is listening and learning how to have conversations with each other, right? We don't always have to agree with everything, but if we want anyone to listen and anybody to learn and grow, we have to be able to know how to relay our message. And one thing that I've learned over the years and as a parent is what you guys mentioned, being open. And when I want to have a conversation with someone, and in myself, I'm not perfect. There are things that I've learned throughout the years and that I've probably gotten wrong. And when I talk to a friend about something, when they explain how things are, I listen and I am open. And I'm like, hey, thanks for sharing. And thank you for not getting mad at me. And thank you for not telling me that I am this and I'm that. And thank you for explaining it because now I understand better. And it's happened to me a few times where, I might have said something that might not be right. And a friend of mine says, hey, Fadia, here is the correct political way, or here is the way. And I'm like, oh, why? Can you explain it to me? I'm more open to listen. I think everybody else, when we explain it to each other, we listen to each other and we're open to learn. And we also have to remember everybody sees the world differently. We live in the same world, but we see the world differently. We've grown up differently. We don't know how people were raised in their home. We don't know the conversations that they had around their dinner table. So when we're going and telling somebody, you're wrong, you're this, you're that, we're not giving them that space to say, wait, what is it that can you explain that to me again? When you're telling somebody that they're wrong and they're wrong for feeling that way or saying something, they get defensive. When we talk to people with kindness and with love and we say, hey, you know what? Here is my experience, here's how I lived it, they're more open to hear you out and to learn and to grow. And I think what everybody said here today, it's something that we can all do together about everything is listening, talking to people with love, and continue to learn. We have to be open to learn about everything that's happening. One more question.
Let me
Sorry.
say something here. The lesson of Stonewall itself. Let me put on my historian hat for a moment. I was not myself at Stonewall, so I'm not speaking as somebody who was there. All right. The wonderful thing about Stonewall is that virtually every segment of our LGBT plus community was involved and important in what happened. All right. You get some more recent documentarians and whatnot who try to say it's this group or that group that was important. But the reality is they all were. What do I mean by that? First of all, let me say the book to read on this question is the one by David Carter, a well-researched, wonderful book. It's called Stonewall. There are several books called Stonewall. Look for the one by David Carter. Inside the bar, right? It was predominantly white, middle class, and young, with a scattering of what in those days we would refer to as drag queens or transvestites, and a couple of women. All right. The first person arrested was a woman who tried to escape and was caught again and then escaped again. None of it would have continued and happened if it wasn't for the people, the street people living on the street or hanging out on that street who never would have been allowed in the bar. They were important also. All of the various segments of our community were involved with that. And also what makes Stonewall different is that after it happened, there were people around who said, okay, we're not going to let this be forgotten about. It is not the first gay riot, all right, but it is the one that something was done with people like Craig Rodwell and others, women and men, middle class and street, black, white, gray, purple, whatever, the whole crowd was there and important in it happening.
I do love those firsthand accounts, especially being in the East Coast is so exciting. But listening and hearing about Stonewall history is also very exciting. And a lot of youth, like I work with youth, a lot of youth have never heard of Stonewall. LGBT youth that live in New York City that are LGBT have never heard of Stonewall. And it's surprising, but also I didn't hear about Stonewall until I moved to the East Coast and I started working for the LGBT network. And it's just something that I don't feel like is talked about enough. So I also think that we should be seeking out knowledge and seeking out experiences of all communities. And Frank, I really liked what you said about, there are some communities both here and abroad where tolerance is kind of the goal, especially when you are facing people that are very, very adverse to LGBT things. Tolerance is like acceptable at that point. If it's death or acceptance, or tolerating, I will pick tolerating every time. Because that is a reality that a lot of people may face. So I really appreciate the stories and all of your input.
Thank you, Melanie. I'm gonna one last question, and then if anybody else has a question, be happy to give this space. How do you envision the future of LGBTQIA+ advocacy and activism?
No, I don't know what I envision. I just know that there's so many more things to be doing. And, like when you talk about all the trans stuff at various states, where that's an issue. I just was looking at the news just tonight where Biden was, pardoning guys who had been arrested as felons in the military and pardoning them, but still they have to go through this whole process of, to get this off their records. And this, I almost didn't even realize that was still an issue for people. There are probably lots of other things like that still need to be worked on. And, I was thinking when Melanie was talking about younger people don't know some of this stuff, I said, well, maybe we need story hours. I said, maybe we need story hours for ourselves, all these issues and I'm sure if you sit down, you can come up with a long list of items that still need to be worked on, and story hour for ourselves.
I think it's important to remember that the world is not, the country is not New York, LA, and San Francisco. All right. And maybe Chicago is good too. I don't know. I happen to know quite a few Midwesterners because of the neo-pagan gay men's thing I go to every year, which is predominantly Midwesterners. So it makes me more aware of young people still facing the same difficulties, the same prejudice, both within and outside of the family, the same being taught to hate themselves and all of that engenders. So that's the first thing. Remember that. Also remember that, okay, when I say I'm advocating for LGBT, well, the fact is, given those initials, in some of those cases, in some of those initials, it's me, and in others, it's I'm an ally too, because it's not me. And all of these things are connected and must be seen as being connected. The number of things that could use change within the country or any country, but we're talking about ours, right? Are legion, and it's okay to pick the one or two that, for whatever reason, particularly gets to you, and to be most active in that area. But be aware of the others. Make sure you continue as an ally in all of the others. It matters. It affects me. It is bad for me if a disease is blamed on Asians. That's not an outside issue to me. It's not my main one. I grant you that. I'm working elsewhere, but I better be aware of it. And if I'm in a group where I hear that, which incidentally I do within my family all the time, if I'm in, I can't be silent. We cannot be silent. We cannot go hide away and on the false idea that if I'm quiet, I'll be safe. I assure you, you will not be. This is no time for silence.
I think that one of the things that we need to pay more attention to is cultural activism in addition to political activism. We have made great progress on the legal fronts to gain a lot of rights and civil rights for our community, most notably the right to same-sex marriage. But somehow, as we were fighting that legal battle, we kind of, some people might have become somewhat complacent in thinking that that there is no backlash coming. And unfortunately, we are witnessing some kind of backlash to all of the hard-won achievement and progress that we have made. And I think that in addition to fighting that legal battle to win rights, which are, I mean, by all means, I mean, we are entitled to as equal citizens of this great country. But we should also pay more attention to changing people's hearts and minds. I mean, I know that sounds like a very trite phrase, but in some way, the more durable achievement that we can make is to convince one person at a time from our family out to our neighbors, community, and society at large that here we are gay people, we are different, but we share a common humanity, we share common values and bonds as human beings and as productive citizens of this country, and we deserve to be, well, not so much tolerate. I suppose that tolerance was an intermediate phase when we were struggling against great odds. But once we have achieved more, I think that equality is the aim, but equality not only in the eyes of the law, but also in the heart and mind of our fellow human beings is something that we need to pay more attention to. And that can only be done through education, through cultural persuasion, and hopefully we'll make more progress in that for more lasting achievements in the future.
Yeah, not to take up too much more time because I know it's reaching 8 soon, but Rich, while you were talking, it reminded me of that quote where it said, first they came for the socialists and I didn't speak out because, I'm not a socialist, and they came for the trade unionist, I didn't speak out. Then they came for the Jews, I didn't speak out, and then they came for me and there was no one left to speak for me. So that's exactly what I was thinking. In terms of just, speaking out and being visible. I think, I don't know if this is like a fact. I think this is more my opinion, but perhaps this generation and this era is probably the most visible LGBT people have been. Maybe it's due to digital media. Maybe it's due to the rise in issues across the country that have been more apparent. But there is a huge LGBT community online that connects people from all over the country and even all over the world. And I'm pretty hopeful for the future of the LGBT community because so many more people are being visible with their identities and they are making statements online in terms of politics, in terms of activism and advocating for their rights as LGBT people. In addition, there is also the usage of the internet where people are able to learn more about LGBT communities, even abroad, which is important because I think knowledge is definitely power, and more people should be aware that there are safe communities out there that they can go to, especially if they are not raised in communities that are affirming and supportive. I just hope that with the upcoming election, people use their vote to show that they are for equality, to show that they want to support communities that are marginalized and oppressed, and just really make themselves visible and known. And with being visible, being safe, and being protected by allies. So that is my hope. And I really think that if older generations and younger generations were able to come together and love and support each other, it would just be a way better world, I think.
This is why we do what we do. So we can bring you guys together and we can support each other and we can learn. Everything you guys said today was so powerful and so amazing. Thank you so much for being part of this panel, this important panel. And we hope to do it again. We don't have to wait till next June to do it again. If you guys want to do this in a few months, let us know. We'll be happy to have another conversation and get together. I really, really enjoyed my time talking to you guys and listening to you guys. All of you brought so much. So I thank you again. I don't know if Mark, if you want to turn your camera back on so we can say our goodbyes.
Right. Again, this is this is now our ninth one, and it's just amazing. If you get a chance, I know we've shared all the videos, but it's just amazing about one of the things I take away from this is I love listening to you guys more than the talking heads. Because I think you guys have so much more wisdom and so much more to say than the people who are allegedly the ones who are the experts. So, and this is one of the things as we've gone through these panels that just keeps on, I see over and over and over again. It's not about the experts. It's about us. It's about us regular people who are in the trenches, who are fighting the battles, and are doing the work. So, and Melanie, I appreciate the quote. By the way, just that quote, just to let people know, that quote actually comes from a pastor Nehemiah, and it was said during the Holocaust. And basically, he was, at one point, I don't know if he supported, but he ended up coming out with that quote, similar, first they came for the gypsies, I didn't say anything, and they came for me. And of course, what ended up happening is he died in the gas chamber. So but I think it's a message that we really need to pay a lot of attention to today, because yes, I think we are being sliced and diced. So we really need to all come together and realize that we're just one human race.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm going to end the live, but if we can all stay here just really quick. And again, thank you. And I hope that we continue to do this. It's really, really powerful and empowering. And I learned a lot. So thank you all for this.